It happened in 3 seconds. A flash of white cups, scalding coffee, and a thunderous silence that froze the cafe. 1 second, Isabella was apologizing to a customer. The next, she was drenched in humiliation, staring up at a man whose tailored suit now wore her mistake. The whispers came fast, the panic faster, but his eyes, cold, calculating, powerful, lingered just long enough to change everything. "Do you even know who I am?" he asked, and she didn't. Not yet, but the city would make sure she did by morning. Because that was the moment the barista who had nothing met the millionaire who could destroy everything, or remake her entire life. That night, Isabella replayed it in her mind. The accident, his face, the way he didn't yell, but looked at her like she was a puzzle he didn't have time to solve. The cafe had gone quiet after he left, but the silence didn't last. By sunset, a video was online. "Barista ruins millionaire suit." It went viral. She laughed at first, a brittle sound that cracked midair. Then came the messages, the pity, the job suspension. One mistake and the world had decided who she was. The next morning, she tried to disappear, hood up, head down, pretending the world hadn't seen her fall. But Manhattan has a cruel memory. 2 men in suits were waiting outside the cafe, holding a letter with her name on it. She thought it was a lawsuit. It wasn't. It was an invitation, embossed, gold-edged, bearing the name Voss Enterprises. She stood in the cold breath, fogging in disbelief. The man she had embarrassed wanted to see her. Inside the towering glass walls of Voss Enterprises, Isabella felt like she'd stepped into another planet, one built on silence and money. Marble floors gleamed beneath her sneakers. Every surface reflected her awkwardness. When the elevator opened on the top floor, he was waiting. Calm, unreadable, like the world didn't move without his permission. "Miss Hart," he said, "you owe me a suit. But perhaps there's another way you can repay me." She should have run. Every instinct screamed that she didn't belong there, that whatever he wanted wasn't simple. But something in his voice, that subtle edge between cruelty and curiosity, held her still. He slid a contract across the desk. "Work for me for 1 month," he said. "Call it repayment." The city roared below, and in that impossible moment she made the choice that would change everything. The first day was a blur of marble hallways, clipped voices, and 1,000 unspoken rules. Isabella didn't understand why she'd been brought here. Her tasks made no sense. Reordering files, drafting letters she never sent, shadowing meetings she wasn't supposed to hear. Yet every time she faltered, Liam was there, watching, testing. He spoke little, but his gaze said everything. "Prove yourself." She began to realize this wasn't employment. It was an audition, one that reached far beyond her job title. By evening, exhaustion gave way to something else, intrigue. She wasn't sure if she wanted to impress him or understand him, and maybe that was the danger. Liam's office was always too quiet, the kind of quiet that made people nervous. But when Isabella brought him coffee, the irony not lost on either of them, she noticed something unexpected. Framed photos on his shelf, an older woman smiling beside a boy who must have been him. There was warmth there, hidden beneath his ice. "You're not here to make coffee," he said finally, his voice breaking the silence like glass. "You're here to learn what people are worth." It wasn't a job, it was a challenge. And she, the girl who had nothing, was being asked to measure value in a world built on everything she never had. By the 3rd day, whispers followed her through the office. The coffee girl, the boss's pet, the charity case. Every sneer stung, but Isabella learned to keep her chin high. Liam ignored the gossip, though his assistants didn't. In one meeting, he asked her to challenge an executive's proposal, her voice shaking as she spoke. Silence followed, until he smirked. "You're the only one who's been honest with me all week." In that moment, she understood why he'd brought her here. He didn't need perfection, he wanted truth. And truth, she realized, was her only weapon. After the meeting, he found her on the terrace, leaning against the railing, eyes on the horizon. "You spoke well," he said. She laughed softly. "You mean I survived?" For the first time, he smiled. Not the cold, business-like smirk she'd seen before, but something real. "Survival," he murmured, "is the first sign of strength." In that quiet height above the city, something fragile shifted between them. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. Two people on opposite ends of the same hunger, each pretending they weren't lonely. That night, when she left the building, the city lights felt different. Brighter, sharper, as if the world had noticed her for the first time. She walked home with tired feet and a strange exhilaration in her chest. Liam Voss had entered her life as punishment, but he was quickly becoming something else. The mirror she'd spent years avoiding. For the first time in forever, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, and that was more dangerous than she could ever imagine. Days turned into weeks, and the girl who once spilled coffee on a millionaire began to move like she belonged among them. Liam's world was ruthless, but she adapted, faster than anyone expected. He watched her trade her apron for tailored blazers, her hesitation for confidence. Yet beneath every victory, there was unease. Power came with a cost, and she could feel herself changing, sharper, colder, echoing his precision. The city that once swallowed her now opened its golden doors, and for the first time she wasn't sure if she was walking into her dream or someone else's reflection. When the invitations came for the charity gala, Isabella almost refused. "You're representing me," Liam said simply. And that was that. Nora helped her get ready. A borrowed gown, trembling hands, laughter over cheap wine. But when she stepped out of the car at the ballroom, the cameras turned, and for a moment, the world mistook her for someone who mattered. Liam offered his arm, and she took it, feeling the sharp thrill of belonging to a life that wasn't hers. Beneath chandeliers and whispers, she realized she was no longer the mistake. She was the story. As music filled the night, he led her through the crowd. Investors, celebrities, people who spoke in half-truths and hidden motives. "Smile," he murmured. "They can smell fear." She did. And when their eyes met in the dance's slow rotation, the rest of the room blurred away. For one fleeting moment, it wasn't employer and employee. It was something dangerous, unspoken, electric. She pulled away first, breath-catching. "Careful," he warned softly, almost to himself. "The higher you climb, the harder the fall." She didn't know then how true that would be. After midnight, the gala's glamour faded into shadows. Isabella found herself alone on the balcony, the city glittering below like broken glass. Clara Voss approached. Graceful, silver-haired, eyes wise enough to see through facades. "You've changed him," she said. "Don't let him change you." The words sank deep, haunting. When Liam appeared moments later, silent and unreadable, she wondered if he had heard. For the first time, she saw loneliness in his perfection, and something inside her wanted to fix it, even if it broke her. By the time dawn came, everything had changed. Isabella arrived at work to find her name on a glass door. Executive assistant to the CEO. The promotion stunned the office. Liam said little, but his eyes said enough. "You've earned it." Yet beneath the triumph, her heart trembled. The closer she rose to his world, the more she risked losing the person she once was. She looked out at the skyline. Vast, merciless, alive, and whispered to herself, "Don't forget where you started." But in her reflection, she barely recognized the girl who once spilled coffee on a stranger. The line between them began to blur. Long hours turned into quiet dinners in the boardroom. Work conversations slipped into stories of childhood, and glances lasted a little too long. Liam wasn't the man the world believed him to be. Behind the power was pain, Behind the command was loneliness. Isabella saw it all. And though she told herself she was only there to learn, her heart refused to listen. Every touch, every silence between them became a secret neither dared to name. The city outside pulsed with life, but inside those glass walls they lived in a different rhythm. One heartbeat away from something that could ruin them both. One night, a thunderstorm rolled across Manhattan, trapping them in the building. Power flickered. Laughter broke the tension. "You're not as terrifying as they say," she teased. He smiled. The kind of smile that made everything inside her unravel. "You just haven't seen me lose." Lightning illuminated his face. The storm reflected in his eyes. When the lights went out completely, his voice came softly through the dark. "Stay." It wasn't a command, but a plea. And though she knew every reason to leave, her heart betrayed her. For the first time, she stayed. They didn't speak of what happened that night. The closeness, the touch of his hand against hers, the silence heavy with meaning. But everything changed. Every morning meeting carried an invisible current. When she passed him in the hallway, her pulse quickened. When he called her name, she forgot how to breathe. People began to notice the way his tone softened when she spoke, how his gaze lingered longer than it should. Rumors spread through the company like wildfire, but neither of them cared. It wasn't business anymore. It was something dangerous wearing the disguise of destiny. One evening, he took her to the rooftop. No suits, no pretense, just wind, stars, and the raw truth between them. "Do you ever miss who you were before all this?" she asked. "Every day," he admitted. He told her about betrayal, about the friend who'd sold him out, the cost of building an empire on ashes. She listened, silent and open, her heart breaking for him. When he looked at her, it wasn't with power, but with hunger. For peace, for connection, for her. The kiss came like confession, gentle, inevitable, sealing a fate neither of them could undo. For days, they lived in a fragile illusion. Stolen glances, hidden smiles, an unspoken vow to protect what couldn't survive the daylight. But secrets have a way of surfacing. During a morning meeting, Liam's rival, Marcus Lang, appeared unannounced, his smile sharp as a blade. "So this is your new project," he said, eyes cutting to Isabella. The room went silent. In that instant, the fairy tale cracked. The world that had lifted her up now threatened to swallow her whole. She saw it in Liam's face, fear, anger, and something darker. The beginning of a storm she wasn't ready for. The days after Marcus's visit felt poisoned. Whispers replaced greetings. Glances turned sharp. Isabella felt the weight of every eye in the office, every rumor that twisted her story. Liam withdrew, colder now. His words clipped and distant. When she asked why, he said nothing. But she could feel the truth slipping through the cracks. One night, she stayed late and stumbled upon a folder left open on his desk. Her name? Her contract. A clause she'd never seen before. Partnership arrangement with Lang Holdings. Her heart stopped. The job, the mentorship, even her mistake. Had it all been planned? When he found her there, his expression said, "Everything. You used me," she whispered. He didn't deny it. "You were leverage," he admitted quietly. But not anymore. The words broke something sacred. She laughed, a sound too sharp to be human, and shoved the folder toward him. "You turned my humiliation into business," she said. "Congratulations, Mr. Voss," he tried to explain, to tell her how it started that way, but became something real. But the damage was done. Love, built on deceit, collapses faster than truth ever can. The next morning, her desk was empty. Her resignation letter sat neatly folded beside her badge. She didn't wait for his reply. The streets swallowed her again. Same city, different woman. The story that had once made her famous now became her scar. She returned to the cafe, the smell of coffee and memory cutting deep. The same customers, the same noise. Yet she was no longer the same girl. She had seen the world from the top, and it wasn't made of gold. It was glass, fragile, cold, and ready to shatter. Liam didn't call. Not once. But that silence spoke louder than any apology. He'd lost her. Not just her presence, but the light she'd brought into his sterile empire. His office felt empty. Every decision hollow. Clara noticed the change. "You built a world of numbers," she told him, "and forgot people are not equations." He said nothing. He didn't know how to undo what he'd done. Only that for the first time in years, he wanted redemption more than power. Meanwhile, Marcus struck. The partnership deal collapsed, and the press devoured the story. Voss' empire tarnished by scandal. Isabella's face reappeared online, twisted by speculation. She wanted to disappear. But she couldn't. Not when her mistake was now his downfall. The cruel irony was unbearable. The man who'd broken her heart was being destroyed by the same fire he'd lit. And even through the hurt, she couldn't stand to see him burn alone. For reasons she didn't understand, she still cared. And that, she realized, was her final mistake. Days blurred into sleepless nights as Isabella wrestled between pride and compassion. She told herself she didn't care, that Liam Voss deserved his collapse. But deep down, she knew. He had given her the tools to rise, even if his intentions were flawed. The empire that once seemed untouchable now cracked under scandal. His name dragged through headlines like mud through rain. When Nora found her staring at the news again, she said quietly, "You could walk away, or you could remind him what truth looks like." Isabella didn't answer, but her eyes said it all. She wasn't done with him yet, not like this. When she stepped into the Voss building again, the air felt different, stripped of arrogance, heavy with defeat. Employees whispered her name, surprised she'd returned. Liam's office was darker now, the blinds half closed, his figure slumped over the desk. He didn't look up when she entered. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Neither should you," she replied. The silence that followed was sharper than anger. Then she placed a folder on his desk, her own research, proof that Marcus had orchestrated the collapse. "You built your empire on trust," she said. "It's time to rebuild it on honesty." For the first time, Liam listened, really listened. Not as a CEO, but as a man stripped bare of power. He admitted the truth, the contract, the manipulation, the fear of feeling anything real. "I wanted control," he said. "You were the first thing I couldn't control." His honesty disarmed her, tore through her anger like light through fog. She wanted to hate him, but hate couldn't survive in the face of truth. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but it began with one small thing: staying to help him fight back. For the first time, they stood side by side, not as captor and captive, but as equals. They worked together through sleepless nights, tracing forged documents, rebuilding lost partnerships, exposing Marcus's deception. For every cruel headline, they found one act of courage. The city began to shift its gaze, from scandal to survival. Somewhere in the fight, they rediscovered laughter. Late one night, while reviewing files, Liam looked up and said, "Do you ever wish we could start over?" Isabella smiled faintly. "We already did," she said. And in that moment, surrounded by chaos, they found peace. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was something rarer. Trust reborn from ruin. By week's end, Marcus's empire crumbled. The press hailed Liam's comeback as the redemption of Voss, but Isabella refused interviews. She wanted no spotlight, only closure. On the day the final report cleared Liam's name, she packed her things quietly. "You're leaving?" he asked. "You don't need me anymore," she said softly. He stepped closer, but didn't stop her. They both knew it was time. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about setting free what once saved you. She walked away without looking back, the city's wind catching her hair like a curtain falling on one final act. Months passed. The world moved on, but Isabella carried every echo of what had been: the rise, the ruin, the rebirth. She worked quietly now, running a small startup cafe near Central Park, the kind of place where people came for warmth, not status. Every cup she poured felt like reclamation, a reminder that she didn't need luxury to feel alive. But some mornings, when the sunlight caught the window just right, she'd think of him. Not the millionaire, but the man who taught her that even broken things can rebuild. Life had moved forward. Or so she thought. It was a quiet Thursday when he returned. No entourage, no cameras. Just Liam Voss, walking through the cafe door like any other customer. The years had softened him. His confidence now wore humility's shadow. "I heard your coffee's famous," he said with a half-smile. She froze, then laughed, the sound carrying memories and forgiveness all at once. He ordered nothing fancy, just black coffee. "Still risking burns?" she teased. "Only from you," he said, and for the first time the past didn't sting. It shimmered, something painful that had turned into gold. They sat by the window, two people shaped by storms, speaking like old friends rediscovering language. He told her he'd stepped down as CEO, started a foundation in her name to help women in business. She tried to protest, but he stopped her gently. "You taught me what real value is," he said. "I spent years chasing power. You taught me how to earn peace." His voice cracked on the last word, and she felt tears rise unbidden. Forgiveness wasn't spoken. It simply existed between them, quiet, fragile, infinite. When he stood to leave, he hesitated at the door. "You turned a mistake into a masterpiece," he said softly. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She smiled, eyes glistening. "You taught me that the extraordinary doesn't need wealth," she replied. "Just courage." He reached for her hand, not to claim, but to thank, and then walked into the crisp autumn air. She watched him go, not with regret, but with pride. Some stories don't need happy endings, only honest ones. And theirs, finally, was both. As evening settled, the cafe lights flickered to life, and Isabella stood by the window, watching the city breathe. Her reflection stared back. Not the timid barista who spilled coffee on a stranger, but the woman who learned to rise from it. The world outside glittered with noise, but inside, everything was still. She whispered to herself, smiling, from ordinary to extraordinary. And in that quiet truth, she understood. It was never the millionaire who changed her life. It was the mistake that revealed who she truly was.